The countdown clock in the arena hits 0, and for a split second, there is a vacuum of silence that feels heavier than the noise that preceded it. Then the guitar riff shreds through the air. It isn't just music, it is a warning siren. Bad reputation screams over the PA system, and the St. Louis crowd realizes what is happening before their eyes can even confirm it. The camera cuts to the entrance ramp, and there she is. Ronda Rousey. But this isn't the smiling, hand-slapping champion they remember from years ago. This is a woman walking through fire, wearing the scars of a legacy that has been questioned, dissected, and disrespected. She walks with a terrifying, singular purpose. There is no showmanship in her gait, only the predatory rhythm of a fighter who has been caged for too long. Michael Cole's voice cracks on the commentary feed, barely audible over the roar of the stadium, screaming that the baddest woman on the planet has returned to claim a debt. The visual is jarring. She is dressed in black, her eyes locked on the ring, ignoring the outstretched hands of the fans in the front row. This is the first shock. Transaction has changed. She isn't here to be adored anymore. She is here to be feared. The atmosphere shifts from celebration to a tense, electric realization that something dangerous has just walked into a scripted world. The air in the arena grows thin, sucked away by the gravity of her presence. She creates a moment of calm shock, where the audience stops cheering for a return and starts bracing for a collision. The limit has been reached, and the explosion is walking down the ramp. She slides into the ring, and the dynamic of the match instantly shatters. The other competitors freeze, their scripted alliances dissolving in the face of legitimate threat. This is where the controlled intensity takes over. Rousey doesn't grapple to perform. She grapples to dismantle. She grabs her first opponent, and the impact on the canvas sounds different, heavier, duller, more final. The commentary team is losing their minds, shouting about her grip strength, her judo background, panic rising in their voices as they sell the unpredictability of the moment. "Look at the eyes! Look at the eyes of Rousey!" they yell, emphasizing that the woman in the ring is operating on pure instinct. She moves like water crashing against rock, fluid but devastating. There is a moment where she stands in the center of the ring, surrounded by chaos, yet she looks completely untouched. It is a chilling visual of superiority. She starts tossing bodies over the top rope, not with effort, but with disdain. Every elimination feels personal. It isn't about winning a match. It is about clearing her space. The audience gasps, not at the moves, but at the sheer speed of the violence. It looks real because, for her, the line between performance and combat has always been blurred. The other wrestlers look genuinely rattled, selling the fear that perhaps Ronda has forgotten the rules. She locks in an armbar, and the grimace on her face tells a story of frustrated years, of biting her tongue, of listening to critics while sitting at home. She isn't wrestling against an opponent. She is wrestling against the memory of every person who said she quit. The ring is her domain, and she is evicting everyone who trespassed while she was gone. The bell rings. She has won. But the celebration is the most unsettling part of the night. Usually, a returning hero climbs the turnbuckle, poses, and soaks in the adulation. Ronda does none of that. She stands tall, chest heaving, and looks at the WrestleMania sign with a glare that could melt the lighting rig. The fans are cheering, desperate to connect with her, to welcome her back into the fold. But she refuses to give them that satisfaction. This is the aftermath of the limit she reached. She remembers the boos from years ago. She remembers the fickle nature of the applause. Backstage, the tension would be palpable. The script called for a triumphant return, but Ronda played it like a hostile takeover. The cameras linger on her face, and you can see the internal conflict. She is a mother now, a legend, yet she still feels like an outsider looking in. The commentary team tries to spin it, calling her focused, calling her determined, but the audience at home feels the coldness. It creates a fascinating friction. We want to love her, but she won't let us. She points at the sign not as a dream, but as a target. It is a masterclass in nonverbal storytelling. She is telling us that she doesn't need our approval to be the best. The disconnect between the cheering crowd and her stony expression creates a suspenseful unease. We realize that the baddest woman isn't a nickname anymore. It is a warning label. She walks up the ramp, leaving the ring not as a victor, but as a survivor who just reminded the world that she is the only lion in a room full of house cats. The moment she steps through the curtain and out of the public eye, the real weight of the night crashes down. The social media landscape instantly catches fire. Timelines are flooded with clips of her entrance, her strikes, and that unreadable expression. The headlines aren't just about wrestling, they're about her legacy. Rousey returns with a vengeance, they read. But the subtext is clear. Is she okay? The pressure on her shoulders is immense. She isn't just returning to a job. She's returning to a lifestyle that nearly broke her once before. We can imagine the scene in the locker room, a mixture of awe and resentment from the roster. The young talent sees a legend who just walked in and took the main event spot. The veterans see a threat. Ronda sits alone, unwrapping her hands, the adrenaline fading into a dull ache. The family aspect looms large here. She did this for her daughter, to show her what strength looks like, but the cost of that strength is isolation. The media chaos outside is deafening. Reporters clamoring for a quote, wanting to know if Rowdy is back for good. But the silence she maintains is louder than any interview. It builds a mystique that WWE often struggles to manufacture. By saying nothing, she says everything. The decision to return wasn't made lightly. It was a calculated risk to rewrite the ending of her story. The world is watching, waiting for her to crack, waiting for the pressure to be too much. But in this quiet moment backstage, amidst the cables and the crates, she finds her center. The chaos is external. The resolve is internal. She has pushed past the limit and found a new gear. In the days that follow, the magnitude of that 30-minute performance begins to settle. It wasn't just a Royal Rumble win, it was a psychological statement. We often look at these viral moments as simple entertainment, mere spikes in viewership graphs. But if you look closer, you see the human story of redemption. Ronda Rousey was pushed to her limit not by a specific opponent, but by the weight of expectation. She was the golden Olympian, then the fallen fighter, then the wrestling outcast. Returning was the hardest thing she could do, because it meant facing the very people who turned their backs on her. The twist, however, is that she didn't come back to win them over. She came back to prove them wrong. The depth of this moment lies in its selfishness. It was a reclaiming of her own narrative. When she pointed at that sign, she wasn't promising a show for the fans. She was making a promise to herself that she would leave on her own terms this time. The controlled intensity we saw wasn't performance art. It was reality bleeding into fiction. The limit she reached was the limit of her patience with being misunderstood. In the end, the most shocking part wasn't the music or the eliminations. It was the realization that the hero of the story had stopped caring if she was the villain in yours. She walked through the fire, burned the bridge behind her, and stood on the other side, finally free of the need to be liked. And in that freedom, she became more dangerous and more compelling than she had ever been before.